The task at hand for the St. Louis Cardinals as they entered Washington's RFK Stadium was simple in its implication, yet difficult in its execution. Defeat the Redskins on their home field and thus win the NFC Eastern Division Championship. History was not on the Cardinals' side. They had won in Washington only once in their last 9 games at RFK, so they could be excused for feeling that there were Redskins everywhere. But this 1984 Cardinals team is a resilient bunch. After slumping to a 6-6 record, they won 3 straight to earn the right to play for the division title. The main man is quarterback Neil Lomax, the NFC's most productive passer in 1984, and the catalyst of an offense that features 2 of the most explosive offensive players in the NFL, wide receiver Roy Grieve and running back Otis O.J. Anderson. Anderson has again rushed for over 1,000 yards this season, the 5th time in his 6-year NFL career, falling short only during the strike season. The Cardinals must be operating on all cylinders in this title showdown with the Washington Redskins. A loss in St. Louis will not make the playoffs. For the NFC East Championship, it's the Cardinals and the Redskins on the NFL Game of the Week. Surprisingly, the first half would be dominated by defense, despite the fact that a total of 30 points would be scored. The Cardinals' highly ranked unit set the tone, first shutting down John Riggins and then victimizing Joe Theismann with a safety blitz by Lee Nelson, number 38. But on Washington's second possession of the first quarter, Theismann connected on one of the few big offensive plays of the first 30 minutes when he found Clint Didier, number 86, behind Cardinal defensive back Wayne Smith. The 44-yard hookup was followed by another big play, one that added to the bountiful collection in the Art Gallery. Wide receiver Art Monk began the game with 95 receptions in 1984. 7 more and he would set a new NFL single-season receiving record. His second catch of this game not only moved him closer to the milestone, but gave the Redskins a touchdown. A missed extra point followed Monk's diving grab, so Washington settled for a 6-0 lead. The Redskins then turned matters over to their defense, a unit that was also tough to control, particularly against the run. The Redskins put the clamps on 1,000-yard rusher O.J. Anderson, holding him to 7 first-half yards on 9 carries. But it was Anderson's miscue as a receiver out of the backfield that put St. Louis in a deep hole. Anderson's fumble was recovered by Redskins cornerback Vernon Dean, number 32. A man who usually creates the turnover with the interception. Dean's 7 1984 thefts place him 3rd in the NFL. But this time it was a loose ball on the turf and not in the air that captured his attention. As the second quarter began, the Redskins were in excellent position to extend their lead. And they capitalized on the turnover when Theismann and Monk teamed up for their second score of the opening half. The catch was Monk's 5th of the half and 100th of the season, as he became only the 3rd player in pro football history to reach the century mark in receptions in a season. The touchdown increased Washington's lead to 13-0. Early in the second quarter, the Redskins were clearly in command. Aggressive defense led directly to Washington's second score, and the Redskins continued to pound Anderson whenever he got his hands on the ball. But the Cardinals joined in the fun, and they soon forced a turnover that helped them get right back in the game. Wayne Smith's interception deep in Washington territory was the break the Cardinals needed. They had been unable to move the ball offensively through a quarter and a half, but Smith's return brought the ball to the Redskins' 1-yard line. If the Cardinals could not get the ball in the end zone from there, then they did not deserve to be NFC Eastern Division champions. No such problem, however. On the first play following the interception, Neil Lomax dove for the score. Midway through the second period, the Cardinals had trimmed Washington's advantage to 6, 13-7. Once again, it was defense that played the key role, but offense quickly took center stage as the Redskins suddenly and dramatically reasserted their dominance. This Theismann to Calvin Muhammad's 60-yarder was the first play from scrimmage following St. Louis's touchdown. It was only the beginning. 2 plays later, John Riggins powered in for his 14th rushing touchdown of the season. It was now Washington 20, St. Louis 7. The Redskins were in control and really had been from the start. Their defense was shutting down the Cardinals' explosive offense, and it continued to do so on St. Louis's next possession. Little had been heard from Roy Green as the Cardinals were again forced to punt. But Washington's superb special teams produced a big play as number 84, Rich Mouty, blocked the kick and recovered deep in St. Louis territory. The Redskins settled for a field goal, but it extended their lead to 23-7 late in the first half, and it was further proof that they were in total control of this title showdown. Trailing by 16 with less than 2 minutes to play in the half, Neil Lomax had to generate some offense, something he had been able to do very little of so far. But Lomax appeared to get things going with 2 straight completions, the first to O.J. Anderson, who finally found some room to run. And the second to Roy Green, who responded with an acrobatic catch over the middle. Green was slightly shaken up on the play, but he returned 2 plays later to be the intended receiver, as Lomax, under heavy pressure from Washington's strong pass rush, tried to put 6 on the board. The ball was thrown short, and it was intercepted by number 28, Darrell Green, as the Cardinals' final offensive thrust in the first half was turned away. It was only fitting that defense ended the half, for it was defense that dominated the game's first 30 minutes. The Redskins had shut down Lomax and company, leaving the Cardinals a frustrated team as they left the field to ponder their fate in the second half. In the final 30 minutes of this championship challenge, that frustration would turn to elation and ultimately to disappointment. But there's no question that the second half of this game did not disappoint any true football fan. The Washington Redskins were now just 30 minutes away from the Eastern Division Championship, while on the other side of the coin, the Cardinals had just that much time to save their season. Down by 16 in hostile RFK, the Birds were clearly headed for the endangered species list, but then their previously nesting offense finally took wing. Neil Lomax put together a modest drive that saw no long plays, and the ultimate result was not earth-shaking either. But the Cards did move the ball successfully for the first time, and Neil O'Donoghue's field goal assured St. Louis that it would not come up empty-handed. The Big Reds still had a long way to go, but this was a good start. Then the St. Louis defense held Washington on its first series, and the momentum began to shift more to the Cardinals' camp. On their next possession, the results were the maximum, coming on a minimum amount of plays. Roy Green's 75-yard touchdown reception was his 11th of the season, and suddenly the Cardinals were right back in the game. With much of the third quarter still to play, the St. Louis defense knew that if they turned the Redskins back once more, their offense might grab the lead. But that would have to wait until Art Monk made a grab of his own, a grab that would carve his name in a permanent place in pro football history. This 36-yard pickup was more than just a badly needed completion in a crucial Redskin game. It was Monk's 102nd catch of the year, breaking the NFL record of 101 set by Houston Oiler Charlie Hennigan back in 1964 in the old American Football League. When Hennigan set this standard 20 years ago, Art Monk was a short-pantsed youngster in the second grade. But now, 2 decades later, young Arthur Monk was all grown up, and the record was his. The new receiving champ would extend his total to 106 by the end of the game. Unfortunately for Monk and the Redskins, there would be little further field advancement, so the boys in Burgundy settled for a field goal from Mark Mosley. It wasn't a touchdown, but it cooled off the Cards, if only for the time being. After Mosley regained his footing, so did the talented toes of St. Louis running back O.J. Anderson, who turned in some big plays on his team's next drive. In the entire second half, the Cards scored on every possession but one, and this wasn't the drive in which they'd be stopped, thanks to O.J. O.J. leaped tall defenders in a single bound, then stepped aside as Neil O'Donoghue deposited another kick through the uprights as the fourth quarter began. A dozen minutes now remained in the game, 12 of the most suspenseful minutes in the entire NFL season. The Cardinals had come a long way in period 3 and now trailed the defending NFC champions by just a 26-20 score. There would be no more Redskin touchdowns today, much of that due to the fierce pressure put on by the St. Louis Red Rush. The Redskins would score but 6 points in the entire second half, as the Cardinals shut down what had been a productive Washington attack. By game's end, the Cards would have 6 sacks on Joe Theismann, but Neil Lomax felt some heat from one of the league's best pass-rushing units as well. Lomax went down often, but not before inflicting damage of his own. In this crucial finale of '84, the Cardinal quarterback saved his best performance for last, collecting a whopping 37 completions for a team record 468 passing yards. In this important fourth quarter drive, Lomax mixed his play calls to perfection, then delivered the coup de grace with his 29th touchdown pass of the season, also a new Cardinals record. The receiver? Who else? Roy Green. With a little under 9 minutes to go, the Cardinals had come all the way back and now led the Redskins for the first time in the game. As has been the case so often this year, it was Lomax to Green in crunch time. One of the many reasons why Green will be a starter in the Pro Bowl ahead of the NFL's new single-season receiving champion, Art Monk. When you can keep someone like that out of the starting lineup, you must be something special. Roy Green is. This was hardly the end of the story. No, sir. RFK was rocking for a Redskins revival, and leading the way was Art Monk himself, who made 2 key catches on Washington's next drive. Joe Theismann contributed a run among the passes with a critical third down scramble, keeping the ball in Redskin hands. Some good hands people on the roster include players like Charlie Brown and wide receiver Calvin Muhammad, number 89. But the best pair of mitts belonged to Art Monk, and Theismann made it his business to get Art the ball. However, the Cardinals would simply not allow Washington to take it in, so Mark Mosley was called upon to reclaim the lead, a lead that existed because of his missed extra point in the first period. Mosley responded with his 3rd field goal of the game, and once again he fell down afterwards. But it was the Redskins who were standing tall on the scoreboard. Washington had the lead, and they also had forced St. Louis to use all of their timeouts. If the Cardinals were to win, they'd have to score with barely 90 seconds on the clock, with only their ingenuity to keep it from running out. O.J. Anderson got the Cardinals into Redskins territory, but the sands in the hourglass were running dangerously low. Lomax then hit wide receiver Danny Pittman over the middle, exactly where he didn't want to pass. And the race against time became a dash of desperation for the Cards. Less than 20 seconds remained as the field goal unit hustled onto the field for a last-gasp 50-yarder, a kick that, if good, would earn St. Louis its first division title in 9 years. After 16 grueling weeks, it all came down to this mad scramble against Father Time. O'Donoghue's kick sailed wide left, and in an instant, the Redskins retained their Eastern Division championship for a 2nd straight season. By the slenderest of margins, they had outdueled the Cardinals, who had played so many exciting games all year long. This time, the St. Louis High Wire Act had no safety net. The Big Red had not only lost, they were now out of the playoffs as well. Whatever quality that separates champions from the rest appears to be in abundant supply in Washington. The Redskins repelled a torrid St. Louis club to hang on for the win, and now enters postseason with a chance to return to the Super Bowl for a record-tying 3rd year in a row. But how close the other guys came. How close indeed.